If you like what we do here over at Aircrew Interview and would like to support us and help us grow, you can head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Aircrew Interview, where you can donate monthly. We have different tiers ranging from $1 per month right up to $25, with each tier offering different rewards. All the monthly donations greatly help us to continue creating these video and audio interviews, so please take a look and I thank you in advance. Enjoy.
Did you mainly do your flying around Scotland, or did you get all over the country and like a kind of normal routine?
Normal routine, mostly Scotland or the North Sea.
Yeah.
Occasionally we'd get down to your neck of the woods, the danger areas off northeast England if we're working with Leeming, something like that. But generally speaking, it would be the vast bulk was over the water, east of Leuchars, maybe going up towards Aberdeen.
Yeah.
Stuff overland in the Highlands. Berwick down towards Newcastle, that sort of area.
Yeah.
Southwest became more difficult, more congested. By that I mean Galloway Peninsula. Western Isles good, like that. The only problem with that was it was poorer radar coverage. And so while it was good on a nice day to be batting around the islands, the UCAJ couldn't actually see you as well, so we had to really go with where they could see us if we were going to get the training value.
And did you just say you were out in the North Sea and stuff like that, and there was F-15s out there, we were like, oh, let's have a pop at them, or was it, or did you have to arrange it?
No, there was something called target of opportunity, and it was an agreed set of fairly loose rules that you could tap in on somebody. It wasn't air combat because it was very defined manoeuvring, and it was supposed to finish with a wing rock and say that was it. Equally, if you start to dive in against somebody and they're wing rocking immediately, it means no, we're not interested, go away, we're probably got an exercise and you're about to muck up our training. So that was the sign to say, look, go away, we're not interested. But we used to do it all the time. There were other times when people would come in, they wouldn't even know you were there. They're not even looking out, you go, who was that, So that was target of opportunity. And there wasn't so much up here, but down south there was a famous geographical point where Wattisham, Coningsby, Binbrook, all that sort of area, you could go if you were looking for a fight, Blakeney Point is the name of it in Norfolk. Hang around Blakeney and, generally, in the good old days when there was plenty of aircraft, you would get a fight. With somebody would come along, have a wee bit of a...
Oh, that sounds brilliant, yeah.
The problem was, quite often you didn't know who it was, and so you couldn't get a full debrief. The big thing that changed that, and it came very late in not very late, but in the last part of my F3 days, is something called raids, which is basically an ACMI pod, but it doesn't rely on ground masts like... the ACMI range in the North Sea. These are rangeless pods, and they talk to each other.
Right.
So you have a PCI-MICA card, whatever it's called. That format of card goes in with your mission details, and it's also recording the aircraft's position and its manoeuvring. It could do weapon events, but for security, we inhibited it because we didn't want weapon parameters going out in the open air unsecured. So we didn't generally, and neither did the Americans, allow it to record weapon events. But you could see manoeuvring and all that sort of stuff, plus identification of other pods. So you didn't even have to know who these people were. You're just flying around, and we'd put in, and it would play back on a PC, big screen, superimposed part of the UK, so you could see where you were, maybe a low flying chart if you're over land, and you could see these other pods coming in. You could interrogate it and get the call sign, and it would be like, that's Scorpion 3, and you can get on, who's Scorpion 3 again? Oh, that was a Harrier out of Wittering or something, and you could actually see how you went on. So you got much more training out of it from that point of view. Of course, it worked if it was all scripted anyway, and you could see them. But that target of opportunity type thing was good. That became a lot better. And I guess again, I'm out of touch now, but I would guess that the Typhoons are using raids or something better, in the same form. Yeah. And it's just pods talking to each other. Yeah. So you can see it happen.
And obviously we're here for a happy hour episode. So have you got any good happy hour stories from your time, Friday night in the bar?
Yeah, right. Well, it was tribal. I've used the word already, but if you go back to Luchers in the late 80s, it really was tribal. And I'm guessing that Coningsby, Watersham, Wildenrath, no different.
Yeah.
But there was a 43 Squadron End, there was a Treble 1 Squadron End, and I remember the University Air Squadron were kind of stuck in the middle. It was before 228 came in. And yeah, there'd be songs and all the rest of it. But there were times when it did get a bit nasty.
Oh, really?
It did get a bit nasty. Somebody got whacked over the head with a snooker cue once.
What?
You know, it just got too carried away.
Too much of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But I mean, things like getting thrown out the window, that was standard. Yeah, absolutely. But it was good. It was good. And in those days, there was less crossover between the two squadrons in terms of postings.
Yeah.
We tended not to operate as a wing, which is a completely different concept now. So there were people there that I knew were on Treble 1, but I didn't really know them at that time.
Yeah.
And so that kind of heightened this them and us attitude. It was quite a rarity to get posted across the runway. You tended to go to another station, just the way the system worked. Now that was completely different in the F3 for many reasons, and I'm sure the Typhoon's the same. There's much more of a mixture, and it's one force, as the Americans like to call it, one team, one fight. But in those days, it was good when it got boisterous with the songs, you know. Treble 1 had a reputation for always taking the cable. And we had in the cable, that's where you'll find Treble 1, in the cable, and they had stuff for us,
Yeah, of course.
etc., etc.
Was there any like you were saying, like sometimes you got nasty in the bar? Was there any nasty rivalries between like people from different squadrons where they just like, I was going to kick off, or?
It was usually down to an individual who just had, you know, either had a mean streak or couldn't handle his drink or something like that.
Yeah.
That's generally how it went. It didn't happen too often.
So it was mainly friendly banter.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, right,
absolutely.
Yeah, because and also like kind of like the happy hour thing. I think it's I saw a video. I can't remember where it was, Roy, but it's basically where you get your wings and then you pick. I think you pick your aircraft you want to go onto, and they do the spin board.
Yeah. They have all sorts of ways of doing it. The first time I came across it, and there's all sorts of combinations.
Yeah.
It was at end attack weapons, which doesn't exist anymore. But basically, I went from Valley in the Hawk, where they teach you to fly a fast jet. You get your wings. I then I went to Brodie to one tack weapons unit, where I'm still flying a Hawk, but now they're teaching you how to fight it, use it as a weapons platform. So dropping bombs, firing the rockets, firing the gun, that sort of stuff. At the end of that, you're going to go to an OCU. Now in my day, so that'd be 86, coming out of tack weapons, there were a lot of aircraft types. And what they had was a table with names across the top, and aircraft type down the side, and various combinations of what you could go to, etc. You know, crosses or not. And they did it like a slow reveal, because they started off by saying, well, the first thing I can tell you is that Archie is not going to the Buccaneer. Right, where's Archie? And Buccaneer, so you're looking for every row that doesn't, you know, and then you say, well, what does that leave for me? And it was, of course, you've all had something to drink, so it was really difficult. So I ended up going to the Phantom, which is where I wanted to go. Phantom, that's where it came back to squadron. I was the only one who was after a squadron. Everyone else was saying, I'd like to go to Wildenrath, I'd like to go to Luchers, I'd like to go to Watersham, whatever. I'm the only one that's running a presidential campaign, get Roy Mac to 43. I had little black and white checkers signs everywhere. And what happened, we were down in, I think it's the Abbey, on the way to Woodhall Spa, and we had the room there. And the way they did it was spinning wheel, but it was really, really cruel, because you had a helmet bag on, right? So you spun the wheel, and wherever it stopped, that was your squadron. But you were the last to know, because you had a helmet bag on.
Right.
And of course what's happening is one of the staff who's got the list would stop the wheel at the right point. So when I spun the wheel, and I'm going, come on, 43, 43, when it stopped, I could hear everybody behind me go, oh no. And I thought, oh, jinx. So I took my helmet bag off, and it's 56 at Watersham. And I remember Dave Shaw looking at me going, sorry, Roy, there wasn't a slot on 43. okay, right, so I make the best of a bad job. It was more the fault. I'd built myself up.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, Suffolk, here I come. I was just finishing the course when a mate of mine who had been on the course ahead of me, and we'd gone through Valley together, he'd been posted to 43 off the course ahead. But 43 were out in Cyprus, and he hadn't turned up on the squadron yet. He'd been given 3 weeks leave.
Right.
So he said, do you want to swap? I went, careful, Dave, because I'm not going to stop this. I will push this. He says, I'm serious. I haven't pitched up the squadron. He wanted to go to Wattisham, but for his course, there were no slots at Wattisham. So I spoke to my flight commander, and he said, well, okay, I'll have a word with him. And eventually, words were spoken. I said, I'll take no leave. I'll go straight to 43. That's it. So they had a look at the 5,000s or flying reports, and they said, yeah, we'll swap.
Brilliant.
So that's how I got there finally to 43.
Yeah.
And my mate Dave went to 56. And his life was defined by that, because he was flying the Phantom that lost control when he was fighting against a Mirage in northern France.
Oh, I've not heard that.
Yeah, basically it went into a spin and they couldn't get it out. And they both ejected. They were fine. Both ejected, they were fine. But, you know, that was one of those life moments where he's suddenly on that squadron, that happened to him. And I may have been flying that sortie, I don't know. You know?
Never tell.
But yeah, exactly. So yeah, he didn't stay in the Air Force long after that. He became an airline pilot and what have you.